Today I'm joined by Fran Drescher, president of SAG-AFTRA. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Fran, 160,000 union members are on strike right now. What impact is this having across the entertainment industry?
Well, I think essentially it's going to stop being able to promote movies with my members and stop production and force the industry executives to reevaluate why we're in this position and how they can pivot towards making the very foundation of their entire business model, namely the performers, feel respected and honored and part of what is really a partnership and a collaborative art form.
And what has it been like to see actors from all levels of the industry coming out?
Well, it's extremely gratifying. I mean, we're all in the same boat, and many of the things that we're fighting for and striking over are for the journeyman working actor who really is just trying to make a living to put food on the table and pay their rent. There are, a very, very small minority of people who are at the very top of the heap, and those are the very famous people who really fuel the engine. They're the reasons why people go to the movies and turn on the TV. And they too are threatened by a AI situation whereby their likeness will not be protected. And it's a very dangerous time that we live because as performers, our likeness, our behavior, the way we act, the way we move, the way we speak, that is what we sell to make a living. And if there's artificial intelligence that can rip that off without the proper barricades for consent and compensation, then, we're going to find ourselves out of work. And we don't want to be out of work. This is our chosen craft and livelihood. And I think that there's some kind of a unthinking, lacking of empathy, a lacking of a long vision of how AI is going to negatively impact all of us. And by putting people out of work, that never is a good thing. People need to work. People need to have purpose in their life. And if you think it's okay to do that, then you should not be in leadership because you're not a people person.
Yeah, and we're here because, the industry has changed in so many ways, and you're talking about that with AI. Can you talk about the other ways that you've seen the industry change that kind of led to this strike?
Well, streaming has had a really very huge impact on the business model of our industry, which used to be predicated on longevity and success of a series. Now it's whether or not the series can do the heavy lifting to gain subscribers. And the algorithms indicate how long a series has to be on to do that before it begins to plateau, and how many episodes per season it needs to have on before it begins to plateau. So, and that is on average 2/3 less than what the old contract was predicated off of. So there's no way you can make the money that you used to make with the long tail of initial run on network television and then syndication and cable and foreign sales. And there was a long tail of revenue that everybody up and down the ladder, from the smallest, one-liner to the star, would benefit from. And we would have years and years of residuals, which was a form of revenue sharing because the studios continued to make money off of the project that we all put together. Now with streaming, we're in a box, and that box is a vacuum with no tail and very short episode buys and very limited season buys. That's no longer a fruitful place to get the kind of revenue sharing that allows us to make a living. And so we have to go into the pocket where the revenue is, because now the name of the game is subscriptions. And we need to get into that pocket. But we were completely stonewalled. They said no, and there was no conversation about it. So, if you're asking for a strike with that kind of an attitude, I don't think they expected us to analyze the business model and see the change in the system and what was required in the contract to change to complement the new business model. But we did see it. And we presented a very reasonable proposal that made sense, because we didn't change the business model, they did. They foisted it upon us. But I don't know if it ever occurred to them that, well, wait a minute, this is going to seriously impact the economics of the performer. Or they did think of it and they said, ooh, goody, we won't have to pay as much. But whatever it is, they now understand that this is the cornerstone upon which we have to set up a new, fresh negotiation and contract structure.
Yeah, and we're hearing from actors like Mandy Moore, like superstar actors even, who's revealing that she's made less than a cent or made $1 off residuals. I know Gunn has been talking about this a lot as well. Help our viewers understand why that matters.
Well, when you get a residual for a penny, I mean, my former co-star of Living with Fran said he has at least 3 series on streaming platforms and he's making hundreds. So, we can't be squeezed out of making a livelihood, and they should know better, and they should not encourage that. They should support the performer, because we are the center of the wheel and we're the very foundation upon which they've built an entire business. But, we need people with more character and more courage to change their culture from trying to squeeze and screw the performer out of every last nickel so that the CEO can get his bonus because he's doing right by shareholders.
And SAG-AFTRA has been on strike for about a week. You're joining the Writers Guild, who's been on strike for over 2 months. So we've got 2 strikes across the entertainment industry happening right now. What do you think that says about this moment?
I said to them in the negotiating room, why do you think everybody is up in arms? You did this. You disemboweled the industry as it was, which was inclusive to all of the above the liners. And you foisted this upon us, and you're surprised that everybody is pushing back and saying, wait a minute, this new business model squeezes us out of our livelihood. What were you thinking? But when you are blinded by a determination to screw the performer, and that's your job, it's very difficult. We're talking to people that say things like, we want to break the WGA. If people lose their homes, that's a necessary evil. Really? They are punishing us. They don't want to speak to us because we exercise our legal right to strike, when they wasted the entire unprecedented 12-day extension and ended up offering us basically bupkis. And, we were forced into that next step. It's not something that anybody relishes, because most of the people that are in my union can't even make the $26,476 threshold to be able to get medical insurance. So obviously, to strike is a very big deal for us. It's something that's going to impact us much faster than these mega salaried CEOs.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about some of these people that you're negotiating with, or these people on the other side. I know that Disney CEO Bob Iger said that some of your asks weren't realistic, and I know Barry Diller suggested that the top actors take pay cuts to share the wealth that way. What do you think the business side just doesn't understand about working actors?
Well, I think that, first of all, I'm not looking to take money away from the few actors who, as I said before, are what makes the engine run. Those are the people that sell the tickets. So don't look to them. Look to the ogres, pardon me, the Igers.
Have any other CEOs made comments that upset you throughout this whole process?
I think after that foot in the mouth debacle, that was so tone deaf from the billionaires camp, where they all came off their private jets in the designer clothes, they probably said to everybody else, better we just put statements in writing, which is all that's happened subsequent to that.
And the CEO of Netflix recently said, he's super committed to ending the strike. What is your response to that?
We spoke to him on the phone. We called him. He didn't call us. And we wanted to urge him to see that we are his partners, and we need to have a piece of the subscriptions, because that's where the money is in this new business model. And it's not about the mechanism, and it's not about the number. We made that very clear. But you have to sit down and talk to us about that, because it's not going to go away. And it's not going to go away by just saying no over and over again, or pleading poverty when you, my friend, are making a king's ransom.
And going back to those negotiations and the negotiation room, what was the most surprising thing that happened to you throughout negotiations?
Well, I think that the disrespect was apparent even in the negotiating room. Whenever I spoke, and I'm the president, they didn't even make eye contact with me. They had their noses in the computers. The only one that was possibly looking at me was Carol Lombardini, who was the president of the negotiating group. But everybody else, not looking, on their computers, going in one ear and out the other, or talking to each other, or multitasking, or whatever. Complete disrespect.
And now you've been on strike for a week. What can we expect next? When will you go back to the table?
That's up to them. We wanted to go back to the table the minute the clock struck midnight on the 12th and continue talking. But true to their, attitude about us, now it's time to punish us. So they're not going to talk to us. And they made that very clear.
Yeah, and so Salon was out, and we covered some of the strikes today in New York City, and people were out and showing their support. But also, a strike can take a toll. People are not working for this cause. What is your message to union members on strike? How do they stay motivated in the midst of not working?
Well, they motivated us. They didn't want us to have the extension even, because they are living this dystopia. For the CEOs, they consider it entertainment. For the people with boots on the ground, they're living it. And they've had enough. When, as my mom always said, you get shit on enough, you begin to notice it stinks around here. And that's where we're at.
Well, and also we talked to actress Dominique Fishback from Transformers, from Swarm, and she was talking about, the misconceptions people have about the acting industry. So she talked about demanding schedules, not being able to be there with family for important moments, and just how quickly the money kind of gets divided up to different people who like work for her and work with her. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are about actors and working actors that you kind of want to like set the record straight for throughout this strike?
Well, most of us have to go up on dozens of auditions before we get one little job. Most of us are just working class people and background people, stunt people, people that are on the edges of life, and every scene that comes to reality and makes it believable for you, the viewer at home, are being squeezed out of their livelihood. It's not right. It's not fair. I never, ever live my life that way. And I have nothing against making money, but money at the expense of everything of true value is maniacal. I mean, human beings, other life, the planet, all of it, it all has one systemic core issue, and that's greed. And you have to be able to say, no, that's not right, and do the right thing, even if it means a little less money, because you can't take it with you. And that's not what this journey is all about. This journey is for each of us to develop into more refined versions of ourself with a capital S. That's our true being by our creator. And if we don't try and practice that each and every day, we're missing the opportunity of what this journey is all about. Now, you may think, well, I give to my clergy and I'm good to my family and I don't cheat on my wife. But if you compartmentalize that and then you go to work and your whole objective is to screw hardworking people with families of their own, then, you're living from a false truth.
And Fran, I have one last question for you. In the light of your role as president and a leader through this strike, people are bringing back a clip from an episode of The Nanny where the nanny refuses to cross a picket line. What's it like to look back on that episode right now?
I love it. I'm glad. There's something also from Beautician and the Beast where I galvanize a union, and I'm, I feel I think it's great. I, created The Nanny, and I actually created that episode and of the strike. It was called The Strike. And I think standing on the side of the underdog, always going to the mat for those being marginalized, is my modus operandi. And I wish it were everybody. The world would be a much better place.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.